वर्ल्ड फूड डे के अवसर पर आईसीसीआर के जरिए सर्टिफिकेट्स बांटे जा रहे हैं अलग अलग देशों में, जहां पर भारतीय खाद्य परंपरा को लगातार प्रोत्साहित किया जा रहा है। ज़्यादा जानकारी के साथ हमारे साथ आईसीसीआर के नेशनल प्रेसिडेंट विनय सहस्त्रबुद्धे जी हैं। सर, क्या कुछ चीज़ें निकल कर सामने आएंगी इस सर्टिफिकेट को देने से, और साथ ही साथ में भारतीय खाद्य परंपरा को कितना जो है बढ़ावा मिलेगा विदेशों में?
देखिए, भारत की जो संस्कृति है उसका परिचय केवल संगीत, नृत्य और नाटक से नहीं होता, केवल बॉलीवुड से नहीं होता। भारतीय संस्कृति का परिचय कराने वाले जितने वाहक हैं संस्कृति के, उसमें हमारी खाद्य संस्कृति भी है। और इसलिए जो सैकड़ों रेस्टोरेंट विदेश में जाकर भारतीय खाद्य संस्कृति की सेवा कर रहे हैं, उसको बढ़ावा दे रहे हैं, उनको रिकग्नाइज करना, उनके काम की स्वीकृति उनको देना, हम मानते हैं कि हमारा दायित्व है। और इसलिए हमने ये अन्नपूर्णा प्रमाण पत्र योजना अनाउंस की है। उसके तहत विगत एक साल में जो नॉमिनेशंस हमारे पास आए, लगभग 2 दर्जन देशों के 125 से अधिक, उसमें से 6 रेस्टोरेंट्स को हमने चयनित किया है, जिसमें एक श्रीलंका का है, एक अमेरिका का है, एक कोस्टा रिका का है, एक स्वीडन का है, एक उलान बातार का है और एक ओमान का भी है। तो इन रेस्टोरेंट्स को हम प्रमाण पत्र देंगे, साथ ही साथ इनके जो मालिक हैं उनको भारत में बुलाएंगे, उनको एक सम्मानित करेंगे कार्यक्रम में, और इस माध्यम से भारत की खाद्य संस्कृति को प्रोत्साहन देने वाले जो लोग हैं, एक दृष्टि से उनका हम सम्मान करेंगे।
अभी तो सर इन 6 देशों को आप आगे लेकर आए हैं, आगे क्या कुछ योजनाएं हैं, किन और देशों को जोड़ा जा सके जिससे जो है भारतीय?
जरूर, हम तो सबको जोड़ना चाहेंगे। ये तो एक कंपटीशन के तहत 6 ही आ गए हैं, हम तो हर साल ये करने वाले हैं। तो आज ये 6 देश हैं, कल और कुछ 6 देश होंगे और 12 देश होंगे। उसको निश्चित रूप में उसके लिए काफ़ी अवसर है और इसका पोटेंशियल भी बहुत अधिक है।
For supporting us at every step and time, we require your assistance for spreading information on ICCR's activities, particularly our new initiatives. Annapurna certificate is one such new initiative from the ICCR. Annapurna certificate is a brainchild of our dear President, Dr. Vinay Sahasrabudhe ji. Today is really a historic day. In my view, this Annapurna certificate will be a coveted recognition in the years to come, and that will be the contribution of President Dr. Sahasrabudhe ji to the ICCR. With the introduction and inclusion of the Annapurna certificate this evening in its repertoire, the ICCR has for the first time given importance to Indian cuisine in its global cultural relation bonding and building efforts. So I can say this in Hindi. अन्नपूर्णा के आने से भारतीय सांस्कृतिक संबंध परिषद अब जाकर संपूर्ण हुआ है. There are various objectives, multiple objectives behind this certificate. I can name a few. I am sure the President will, in his address, will tell you more about this certificate. First and the foremost objective of this certificate is to promote the authentic Indian food. As we all know, all kinds of food under the garb of Indian restaurant are being served abroad. So this is an attempt by the ICCR to recognize those restaurants who are selling the authentic Indian food, basically to separate the wheat from the chaff and ensure the quality that we endeavor to serve abroad. Second, also, the objective is also to recognize the efforts of all those Indians and locals in those countries who are running Indian restaurants. As you know, running an Indian restaurant abroad is not an easy task. It's a very difficult task. And my own personal experience as India's ambassador to Senegal and Mozambique, and various other countries that I served, wherever you go, you'll find the Indians and Indian restaurants. Even in Senegal, Dakar, the capital city, had at least 5 Indian restaurants. Maputo, the capital of Mozambique, also has various Indian restaurants. So this is to recognize their efforts to run an Indian restaurant in those countries. Third, the objective is also to create a strong database. When we announced the certificate last year and sought nominations from our embassies abroad, we received more than 100 nominations. And tonight we'll hear the 6 winners. So in my view, I believe that with the passage of time, maybe within next 10 years, we will have a strong database of all the Indian restaurants abroad with the ICCR. Fourth, encourage those restaurants who are serving the Indian food abroad to continue serving the Indian food. The attempt from the ICCR is to create a niche market for the Indian food abroad. So when people go abroad from India, also those who are living in those cities, they want the authentic Indian food, they can see for this certificate and they can go to the restaurant and eat the food, the authentic Indian food. The last one, last but not the least, is to induce competition among all the Indian restaurants abroad. Our intention is to make this certificate so much coveted by all the Indian restaurants abroad so that they can look forward to receiving this certificate from us, and thus they will improve the quality of the food that they are serving. Indian restaurants in various countries. So that President will tell you the names of the restaurants. In the end, I would like to say that with this, the ICCR, Shlok 14 of Bhagavad Gita says, Annat Bhavanti, Yagyanat Bhavati, Prajanya Samud Bhava. That means living beings are dependent on grains. Grains are produced by rain. Rains are a result of performing sacrifices, food and commune together to give thanks. We at ICCR, देता तो है पोषण हमारे तन को, लेकिन जीत लेता है सबके मन को. धन्यवाद. Thank you so much.
Let me at the outset welcome you all for this media briefing. And naturally, since the subject is about food, it will be followed by dinner as well, as all of you are aware. As it happens, during the last several years, ICCR has been trying to cover all the aspects of Indian culture and doing away with the traditional stereotyping kind of a notion that culture means only music and dance. Culture is a very broad concept, and few years back, as many of you would recall, that we had also discussed the textile traditions through a webinar. It was the COVID-19 period, and therefore we could not have a seminar organized, but it was a webinar on weaving relations through textile traditions. So from architecture to textile designing to education to culinary cuisine traditions, everything is a part of the concept of culture. And especially when we talk about Indian culture, we have been spreading the message of our culture and its very enriched traditions, which are several millennia old, as a part of the institutional mission of the Indian Council for Cultural Relations. And therefore, a few months before, it was thought that we should also consider the contribution of Indian restaurants abroad in making India understand through the culinary and cuisine traditions of our country. As everybody is aware, there are hundreds and thousands of Indian restaurants. Most of them are making brisk business, so much so that Indian restaurant has become a brand. And several people from different countries are also using this brand and making a business. So naturally, it becomes pertinent to protect the authenticity of Indian culinary cuisine traditions and promote the enterprise of NRIs and PIOs who are into this sector and recognize their contribution in one way or the other. So with this particular view in our mind, we decided to think about some kind of a certification program, and then it was decided that we will call it Annapurna Certification Program. As it happens, our outlook towards food also has been very sacred. We don't say that we only eat. In fact, there are many scriptures, they describe that eating is a part of a yajna karma, which is a very sacred thing. It is also a kind of a worship. And therefore, that kind of a approach towards preparing food and consuming food, it was very natural that we take the message of our food culture not only to the stomachs but also to the brains of the international community, and therefore this idea was given a concrete shape. As has been mentioned earlier, we approached our missions, appealed them. There were some rules, regulations, some kind of a framework that was devised that the restaurant should be at least 5 years old, should have an unblemished track record in their country, should be able to attract footfall of the local people, not just the NRIs, and largely should be serving both the north and the southern, the northern and the southern food traditions in India, if possible, all other provinces also, including eastern and western. So under these rules and regulations, the nominations were sought, and we received some 115 nominations from more than 24 countries. And later on, some shortlisting happened, and thereafter the panel of jury, about which our acting director general has already informed you, 6 restaurants were finally selected. I am happy to announce them. There is no chronological order as such, but I am just reading them. The certificates are going to be given to Messrs. Balaji Dosai, which is a restaurant at Kandy in Sri Lanka, Indian Street Food and Company, which is again a restaurant at Stockholm in Sweden, Messrs. Amber India Restaurant at San Francisco in United States of America, Messrs. Naans and Curries, an ethnic Indian restaurant at San Jose, Costa Rica, Mrs. Mumtaz Mahal Restaurant at Muscat in Oman, and lastly, Namaste Indian Restaurant at Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. So, as you would make out, there are restaurants in South Asia, in Nordic countries, in America, in South America, Latin America, in Middle East, and also in Asia. So likewise, these 6 restaurants have been selected for the final award of this Annapurna certificate for the year 2023. And we are making this announcement today because this happens to be the International or the World Food Day. And therefore, here onwards also, on this occasion, we will be announcing the names of the annual Annapurna certificates. The number will remain close to 6, or let's say between 6 and 10. And the jury also will be constituted every time, which will comprise some food scientists or expert in our food culture, like Professor Pushpesh Pant. Other 2 names already have been informed to you about them. A very renowned chef and President of Indian Culinary and Cuisine Society, Shri Manjeet Singh Gill, Vishnu Manohar of the Vishnu Ji Ki Rasoi, which is very famous in several parts, not just in India, but abroad as well. And there is another person, Mr. Arun Parthasarathy, who is a South Indian restaurant owner, and for several years he has been into this. So likewise, the panel was constituted. We have also sought the participation of the Ministry of Tourism, and their representative was also a part of this panel of jury. Now, After having declared these names today, our embassies, and we are requesting them to carry a plaque which we will be showing to you, to these restaurants as per their convenience before Diwali if possible, and place it right at the entry of those restaurants so that the brand of Annapurna certificate is established slowly but certainly. Later on in the month of December, we will be inviting all these owners of restaurants, and they will be ceremonially presented a trophy which will carry an idol of Devi Annapurna and a certificate also. And in a ceremony, it will be handed over to them. This particular program will, already the objectives have been outlined, but our focus is going to be make deeper inroads into the global culinary and cuisine culture. For example, one idea is to connect with schools that are teaching culinary and cuisine related subjects and request them or explore the possibility that they make Indian culinary and cuisine traditions or Indian recipes as a part of their syllabus. That is one thing which we certainly would like to achieve at the end of the whole thing. Secondly, we also would like to promote Ayurvedic food or healthy Indian food, and in that context also, we will be leveraging the presence of these restaurants who are the now recognized restaurants under this Annapurna certificate program. And thirdly, we would also like these restaurants to help us in promoting various other aspects of Indian culture. For example, we are going to request these restaurants that if they can keep a corner for display of Indian artifacts, especially traditional craft persons' creations in their restaurant, so that they also are benefited out of the glory that these restaurants have achieved. Likewise, there are many things which we can certainly explore. There is a huge potential of the strength of these restaurants and in general our culinary and cuisine traditions. They are popular, they have been attracting huge crowds in the countries wherever they are operating. But with these certificate program, the thought behind Indian food culture could also be taken to places all over the world. In sum and substance, that is the objective behind this particular very unique and the first of its type program, which we are very happy to announce and share with you on this World Food Day. That is what I wanted to share with you. Are we going to see the clip?
But before we wanted to unveil the plaque.
This is going to be the plaque which we will be giving to the restaurants. They will display
culture, history, and culinary traditions. Today, we are thrilled to introduce you to a remarkable initiative by the Indian Council for Cultural Relations in celebration of World Food Day. The ICCR, an autonomous body under the Ministry of External Affairs, is committed to promoting Indian culture globally. And now, they're taking a step further to celebrate and honor the ambassadors of authentic Indian cuisine around the world. Introducing the prestigious Annapurna Certificate, a recognition like no other. This certificate is ICCR's way of honoring restaurants abroad that have significantly contributed to the promotion of Indian cuisine and culinary traditions among local communities. These culinary establishments are not just serving food. They are fostering cultural exchange through the universal language of food. Imagine the aromas, the flavors, the spices that transport you straight to the heart of India, no matter where you are in the world. But how are these exceptional restaurants chosen? It's not just a random selection. It's a meticulous process, a prestigious selection committee consisting of experts in Indian cuisine and culture handpicks the recipients of the Annapurna certificate. They meticulously evaluate the quality of food, the authenticity of flavors, and the impact these restaurants have on their local communities. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. The ICCR is proud to announce the recipients of the Annapurna certificate for this year. Ladies and gentlemen, it is our honor to present the Annapurna certificate to 6 extraordinary restaurants that have truly embraced and promoted the essence of Indian cuisine abroad. These restaurants have become a bridge between cultures, bringing the taste of India to the far corners of the world. Each Annapurna certificate is not just a piece of paper. It's a symbol of their dedication to preserving and sharing the culinary treasures of India. So as we celebrate World Food Day, let's not just savor the delicious flavors of Indian cuisine, but also explore the incredible stories behind the restaurants that have received the Annapurna certificate. Join us in celebrating the global ambassadors of authentic Indian cuisine, and let's continue to promote cultural exchange through the universal language of food.
In society, a very old organization, he himself is a very renowned, experienced chef, and another person is विष्णु जी की रसोई फेम श्री विष्णु मनोहर। वैसे बहुत सवालों से घिरा हुआ विषय है नहीं, फिर भी अगर आपके मन में कुछ सवाल है तो आप पूछ सकते हैं। बिल्कुल बहुत बढ़िया उत्साह है, और वैसे हमने कोई वो शर्त रखी नहीं थी क्योंकि ये कार्यक्रम तो लास्ट ईयर से शुरू है, मगर कई रेस्टोरेंट्स आज भी भारत के इनिशिएटिव से जो मिलेट ईयर मनाया जा रहा है, तो many of them have devised very attractive and tasty dishes out of millets. वो तो हो ही रहा है, और इस बात में जो पोषण का मूल्य है मिलेट्स का, वो भी लोगों के ध्यान में आ रहा है। उस दृष्टि से भारतीय इनिशिएटिव का सर्वदूर स्वागत है।
Sweden was asking, what was the process of how did you decide as a jury to award this restaurant and not that restaurant?
The ICCR has made the criteria, and the Indianness has to be there in the restaurant, and the cuisine should be, pan-Indian or regional food must be represented well. It should not be the, with the modern fusion or, progressive foods, that kind of thing. So they represent the Indian culture and the Indian food, which has such a long heritage and the legacy of this, and a very much evolved food from the thousands of years, and we still follow those practices. So we like to put the Indian food into a right perspective in the minds of the people, not, it is started by many people, just adding the little chilies and tomatoes and all that, but the food is very different. And that's what we like to present to the whole world, that what the real Indian food is. So all the restaurants which are following those traditions and all that are in compliance.
You have आप लोगों में से किसी के पास कोई सवाल हो तो if you any one of you have a question,
added later on, और बेसिकली मैं कहता हूँ कि ये एक मिथ है कि इंडियन फूड है तो स्पाइस है, ऐसे ज़रूरी नहीं है, इट्स नॉट ट्रू स्टोरी। और ये भी मैं बता सकता हूँ कि 4-5 साल से जब मैं हिंदुस्तान के बाहर रेस्टोरेंट चलाता हूँ, तो वहाँ के जो लोग हैं वो स्पाइसी खाना चाहते हैं, और हम जो है एक ही जगह ठहरे, जैसे हमारी सारी जो रेसिपीज़ है, तकरीबन अभी मैं एक खाद्य कोश लिख रहा हूँ, 22,000 इंडियन रेसिपीज़ है, 22,000, और उसमें से कुछ चंद ही रेसिपीज़ वहाँ तक पहुँची है। तो ICCR के इस प्रोग्राम से मैं कहता हूँ कि आने वाले 2-4 साल में सारी इंडियन रेसिपीज़ जो है तो सारे हिंदुस्तान के बाहर के लोगों को, सारी दुनिया को पता चलेगी।
Implication is that people must understand what the Indian food is. Indian food is not chili hot, it's not spicy, it is spiced, it is aromatic, it is full of flavors, and spices are used with a very skillfully they are used. So it's not just a generic word used for the Indian food as a spicy food is a very, very wrong perception in the minds of the people. So that's what this certification will help to improve the restaurants and to present the food in a nice perspective.
The hard work of my dear colleagues from ICCR and the participation of these restaurants from across the world. So I wish to thank you all and request you all to join us for celebration of Indian food, Indian cuisine. Thank you.
तो जैसा कि आपने देखा वर्ल्ड फूड डे के मौके पर यहाँ पर आईसीसीआर के जरिए भारतीय खाद्य पदार्थों को किस तरह से दुनिया में स्थान मिल सके, बेहतर स्थान मिल सके, इसके लिए ये प्रोग्राम ऑर्गेनाइज किया गया और इसका बेहतरीन तरीके से सब कुछ मैनेजमेंट आईसीसीआर के जरिए किया गया। यहाँ के आईसीसीआर के जो चेयरमैन थे डॉक्टर विनय सहस्त्रबुद्धे, उनसे भी हमने बातचीत की, उनकी राय जानी। उनका साफ तौर पर सीधा और साफ संदेश है कि इस प्रोग्राम को आगे और देशों तक पहुंचाना है और इसके बहुआयामी परिणाम निश्चित रूप से आएंगे, ऐसा उनका मानना है। वीडियो जर्नलिस्ट जतिन गुप्ता के साथ मयंक तिवारी, दिल्ली।